So no matter how much I kept digging, all I could find is like blood and guts and bone and like a lot of hair, just hair like everywhere. And oh, Corey, did you start the stream? Oh,
Call your lawyer. But
I'm sorry, that one wasn't as funny as I hoped. Are we actually live now?
I hope so.
We are, yeah. Yeah, we
That's
are.
great.
Okay. I just heard my own voice. I sound pretty good.
That's good that you think that.
Yeah. Silky almost.
Wow.
Yep.
That's that just changed a lot. You got so much closer and then it got more smooth and subtle.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we give people a second to get in, then start?
I think that's what we should do.
Okay.
So, do you want to keep talking about your story there?
No. Never again.
It's good to have this stuff on video, right? Oh crap!
Yeah.
That still says "Heir to the Empire." Why did that not update?
Oh no! It's ruined.
Well, I think I saved it as PSD.
I hate that. I'm sure there's a way to change the default, but I'm far too lazy.
Well, I save it as PSD, then I save it as PNG, but the thing where it's like, it's busy saving in the background.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually change.
I just save everything as a JPEG. Not joking. Every image, I don't mess with PNG unless it needs to have a bit of transparency. I'm just full JPEG guy.
JPEG you basically have to use for thumbnails because the rest doesn't work, but is that going to change now?
Do you ever pop out a JPEG that's just too large that YouTube's like can't do it?
Yeah, that's why I went. I think I put on like least compression ever, and then it was. This is actually the YouTube 10, podcast now, so
yeah. All right, should we start?
I'm just getting that that thing saved properly as the thing before everyone leaves and decides we are unprofessional.
You're actually re-exporting it. How good for you.
Well, I don't want people to be watching the podcast and then halfway through they're like, wait a minute.
Who's that shirtless man? He's super ripped. We'll take a few questions until we start. Is this about ex-lady chasing days? No. That'd be a good topic.
It usually goes into that. Like
usually, yeah, we touch on
grade 7 stories and
yeah. Listen, I was taken in grade 7. Don't you ever suggest that I was chasing tail. I was taken.
Well, whatever story you told about Valentine's Day or I'm drinking Palm Bay, as people just saw. Oh, we're always totally sober on these podcasts, I think, is the takeaway people should have.
That's the key to the deep analysis.
It says Dark Force Rising now. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
All right. Is this the book that people want to see? This is actually the new version. So
you got Legends banner, do you? I'm a little behind.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's okay.
I could have swore that the copies I had originally that I still had them, but apparently not. Just Legacy of the Force and the other ones, Fate of the Jedi, not the Lost Jedi. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so you ready?
Yep.
Ready to pretend we like and respect each other?
No, but I'm ready to do this podcast.
All right. So I'm going to go live in 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions, our Star Wars Book Club podcast, where we talk about Star Wars books, clubs, and podcasts. Today, we are talking about Dark Force Rising, the second book of the Thrawn Trilogy. Joining me, as always, is my illustrious co-host with the mo-host, Mr. EckhartsLadder. Justin, how you doing?
More like Intro Force Rising. More like Intro Force Volume Rising. You did the countdown, and then you just brought up to like 11. I wasn't quite ready for that.
Okay, well, I could hear myself the entire time that I was doing that. So,
Have you ever seen that SNL thing with Ashley Simpson where she started just like dancing,
no.
like just doing that jig because her like what do they call it, auto tune or whatever broke.
Oh, yeah.
Her excuse was that it was because she was getting feedback into her headphones and she could hear herself sing. So I just imagine you just like doing your intro, just start jigging. But
It's like the apps or the slight delay headphone stuff where you can put it off for like a second and then it's impossible to talk anymore because it's going. Yeah. Like what you just did there.
A game like that? I think like a board game or something.
Maybe.
Anyway.
But I'm excited to talk about this book because it's like everything I liked about the last book, but slightly less weird Thrawn abilities. So
yeah, way less.
There's 2 mentions of it, but I ignored it.
Okay.
So
and you're not making that comment sardonically, are you?
So much. It's everything's dry, sardonic, or wounded was the other one for Han.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of shuddering too. Leia shuddered when she thought of that. But I think we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. We should, chat a bit. We should say hello to each other. Should catch up.
Yeah, that's what people like to hear from the podcast is us go off on random tangents. I guess we should say normally we try to get in some Star Wars news at the start. I say normally, we've done it once before. And
no, twice. No, twice. Come on, don't undercut us.
Twice. So I guess just off the top here, we'll talk about what's happening with the next episode because it is going to be a little bit different. Yes. There's an end of a trilogy that we're getting to here with the Thrawn Trilogy. We'd technically be covering The Last Command next. However, 2 weeks from now, we are going to be on the Friday instead of the Thursday, having a very special episode, the most special episode covering a little movie that you guys may know as Frozen 2.
You subverted my expectations there.
But so
we will be covering I almost called it last year. We will be covering Rise of Skywalker.
What if we just 2 weeks from now we do an episode of Tapcaf on Friday the 20th and we just talk about Last Jedi?
And not even like the old book, like not the no, but are we for sure gonna do it Friday? So Friday for sure then?
That works for me. So Friday at the 7:00 p.m. time slot, which will, I believe, be live on your channel.
Oh, funny how that works out.
Yeah, just getting all the good. You have the first book in the Thrawn trilogy, then you have the first movie that's come out since we started. I don't know. I feel like there's been some sort of conspiracy set up here.
Well, I looked at a calendar. How's that a conspiracy, Corey?
Well, when you picked which day we'd be coming back for the first episode after your wedding,
after my wedding, yes,
perfectly.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna be the guy in the theater. I guess if we're doing it the next day, I'll be the guy in the theater with the big ass laptop, just typing away.
Yeah, so you're gonna watch the first 5 minutes before they kick you out.
Yeah, I guess so. I'll just take a marker and just start writing on Kelsey. Like, Kelsey, sit still.
You can bring paper. What do you have to go from a laptop to Kelsey?
I don't know.
Are those the only 2 ways to take notes you know of? Either
computerized
digital notes or write on your significant other.
Can you not note shame me on my own podcast, please?
Own podcast. Justin's the only one that's going to have notes tonight. Dana couldn't make it to the movie, so I have no notes.
Is she actually going? I never heard the conclusion. No, she's not going.
I'm going to be watching alone.
You're going by yourself.
I think I have some other friends who might come, but we'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any other news, really? I guess we had another episode of The Mandalorian, or 2 episodes. Episode 3 and episode 4.
Yeah, so I saw from some videos on your channel that you have a take on the last episode.
I really liked it.
But
that's it. I really liked it. So I got in a bit of trouble with my YouTube community because people, I questioned it because I heard a lot of people say not that the episode was bad, but that the episode was the least good of them, the worst of them. And
The title
so
of the video, as I remember it, was specifically "The First Bad Episode?" ?
And then I changed it to "Was it the first bad episode?" ? And yeah, and then when the second I did that, the views dropped right away. But
Rookie mistake.
I didn't want to clickbait people, and people thought it like, when you do stuff like this, you get usually good like ratios on your videos. Like I'm at like 98% or whatever, channel wide. I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah.
And then for that though, right away it was like,
but
it was like 30% dislikes, 40% dislikes. Yeah, it was my fault. So.
Well, I think all your lowest like ratio videos are the ones you rehost from me. Then
no, my lowest liked videos, I did one on the history of K characters in Star Wars, and people didn't like that.
Oh, people, there were. I love the comments on either my videos on my channel or on your channel. I don't know how often you get it for yourself, but the ones that are like, basically just calling you a nerd when they decided to watch a Star Wars lore video. It's like, what did you expect?
Yeah, I do that whenever I do my ship design ones, like why Star Wars ships don't make sense, or why whatever doesn't make sense. And they're like, well, of course it doesn't make sense. It's Star Wars. And I'm like, I get that. And does it really like affect my enjoyment of the movie? No, I do this because I enjoy that. And yeah, that's why. Like,
actually, that kind of segues into something that came up in the comments of the last episode.
I know exactly what you're going to say, I think.
And I was thinking about bringing it up just at some point during the podcast, maybe during the questions period, but this kind of ties into it, where in a few episodes now, especially the first episode with like the incel Luke jokes.
Yeah.
But where there will be comments. Sorry?
No, sorry, go ahead.
There will be comments on the video, on the podcast, being like, you guys just trash talk Star Wars. And
yeah,
we don't, like, I don't see it as us trash talking. Like, we're not just going to sit here for 2 hours talking about like, this was good, and then this was good, and then this was good. If there's stuff that stood out to us as stuff we didn't like, we're more likely to try to talk about that and figure out what went wrong for us. But like, both of us, I don't want to speak for you here, but I'm pretty sure both of us love Star Wars, and both of us love Legends. And like the Thrawn Trilogy is arguably the most important book series in my life, considering like it led to Thrawn's Revenge and into like what I do for YouTube and what I do for modding stuff. So it's like easily the most impactful book series I've read in my life. So when I criticize the stuff like Thrawn's art stuff, it's not like, this is bad now. You can really enjoy something, but then still have aspects of it that you're critical of, and that's not a bad thing.
Yep. No, that's funny because I was literally just about to bring that up. I don't think we talked about this off stream, but I did notice a lot of comments like that. Like, you guys, all you do is rip on this, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, no, I agree completely. We rip on it. First of all, we're not ripping on it. We're talking about it. That's just what Star Wars fans do. You talk about like the details, like that Clerk scene about like Luke killing everyone on the Death Star. You overanalyze things because it's fun, because really you're just like, it's just an excuse to read closely something you really enjoy. But yeah, like obviously, I mean, I think we both rated Heir to the Empire number 2.
Second, yeah. We both put it second. And so I can actually put up the screen for that now, where I've made a list of our rankings.
Epic.
So now I don't have to read them off every time. For the people on listening to the audio podcast, we'll probably just say our first and last place and then where we're going to put the books. But yeah. So yeah, just a disclaimer, I guess, going forward. We will be critical of stuff. That does not mean we did not enjoy it.
If we don't like it, we'll say, like, we didn't enjoy Krytos Trap.
Yeah.
We said we didn't like it.
And we're usually bringing it up for a reason. So, like, when we were criticizing Krytos Trap, we were basically comparing it to what happens in the other books. And that was kind of the point I was getting at with the stuff that I was criticizing in Heir to the Empire, where I was talking about like comparing it to how Timothy Zahn specifically, like the same author, writes now, and stuff that I liked more about how his writing style progressed.
Yes. or like how Thrawn is a lot more two-dimensional, or like a lot more nuanced in later books.
Yeah.
So like we were kind of criticizing the character a bit, but only because expectations change.
Yeah, and it's a big part of looking at how Legends as a story, like the meta story, developed.
Right.
What Star Wars looked like and what the storyline looked like when Thrawn was originally introduced, versus the fact that like we get to the context that gets added later. It is a retcon, but it's still retcons aren't bad. Where it's like the reasons he was doing all these things according to the newer sources, and how much does that come in when reading the Thrawn Trilogy versus how much was sort of built around it later.
Yep. Totally. No, I agree. What did you think? What do you think of this book though, compared to the other one? I will say,
absolute trash. I fucking hated it.
Same. It was awful. It's so bad. We're gonna end the podcast just forever. No, but I was really like, because it's December, and for those who don't do like YouTube stuff, December usually, at least for Star Wars creators, is usually a better month, especially when there's a new movie coming out and when like ad rates are higher because it's Christmas. So I try to get as many videos out as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So for this one, I was forced to do audiobook only. And usually I listen to it like when I was driving somewhere. And I was finishing it off today. And Kelsey was off doing shopping or whatever, and I was driving around with Gus, and I pick her up. She gets in the car. The first thing she hears is Chewbacca was fingering his bowcaster. She's like, what the hell? What the hell does that mean? Because she likes Star Wars, the movies, but she doesn't know what a bowcaster is. It's between that and the Nogri voices that the narrator does. Mark Thompson, she was like, what is this?
I've never actually listened to the audio, but I haven't listened to any Star Wars audiobooks.
They're
as
so
we've
good.
Covered on previous episodes, but
so
I just threw a body down a garbage chute.
Classic Upper Canada.
I'm lucky enough to have my apartment back right onto the garbage chute, so my bedroom specifically, so I hear everything. So
you're saying you can get up to the detention level, no problem?
I could, but there was a dino in there, so.
I like the joke somebody made. I think it might have been like, have you ever watched the Star Wars Minute podcast? This is our first discussion of another podcast, I think.
No.
It's basically a podcast. They spend each episode looking at 1 minute of Star Wars. So like there's like 140 episodes of.
Here I thought that Star Wars Minute was just Alex's show.
Well, it used to be, and that's why he changed it. But just because anyway, that's for another day. But they when you overanalyze something that deeply, you can pick up a lot of funny things in the movie. I mean, they're talking about a single minute of a movie for an hour sometimes. Mm-hmm. One of the things that they mentioned was that everyone calls it a trash compactor until Luke calls it a garbage masher. It's just like little Tatooine farm boy Luke. They're all using the technical name for it. It looks like the garbage masher. And another was that Darth Vader calls himself a learner. I was a learner, but now I'm the master. That's just, why'd you call yourself a learner? It's just kind of weird.
Padawans hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
If they had been, then Timothy Zahn would have made the Nogri the Padawans.
Yeah. I guess we'll get into that.
All right, so we've kind of played around with the format a bit, trying to figure out what works best with the way we cover the books. Because some of the earlier episodes, we were basically doing like, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and there'd be like a minute or two of discussion about it, and we couldn't really talk about the books. We were just doing a super abridged, contextless audiobook. Mm-hmm. So last episode, and a bit with the MedStar ones, we just sort of given a broad overview of what happens, and then gone into whichever discussion points we felt like were most relevant, and bring in points from the book as they came up. I really liked how that went last episode.
Yeah, me too.
So we're basically going to try to stick with that. So Do you want to?
I mean, the plot of this book is ultimately pretty simple. It's two sides basically hunting for the Dark Force, and the Dark Force is this fleet of Dreadnought Class Heavy Cruisers that's been lost since the pre-Clone Wars era, and it's basically enough ships to, when properly utilized, they feel like can change the power dynamics in the entire galaxy. So a lot of the book is honestly like the characters running into issues on their way to do other things. Luke's, I guess, his main thing is that at the end of not the end of the last book, but the middle point of last book, he's off to see Jorah Sabaoth, but he gets pulled out of hyperspace by the interdictor. This book sees him come back around after, he escapes the interdictor and has those run-ins with Talon Card or whatnot. So this time he's back to Joe Mark. He's going to meet Sabaoth, and Leia is doing stuff with the Nogri, and Han and Lando are basically just off having space adventures together.
Finding old Corellian war heroes.
Yes.
But I kind of like with Luke's adventure, sort of paralleling what went on with the movies, where it was like going to find this new teacher in the second movie and deciding he had to leave to go help his friends. Where with Yoda, he was unsure what he was getting into. With Sabaoth, he says basically the same thing, like, this doesn't seem like what I was expecting, but I always got that with all my teachers. But then ultimately he decides that Yoda is
the true kind of Jedi.
He should be listening to Yoda, but with Sabaoth, he basically gets that SpongeBob. All right, I'm gonna head out. That's basically what I was picturing the whole time.
Me too. He's just like, I just like imagine Luke just being like, just like looking around, just like, is this dude for real? But like it's the whole time, like Sabaoth is just being like as creepy and as weird. Like he's never wearing a shirt. Like he's always like doesn't wash his hair by the sounds of it. Like wearing slippers and just like electrocuting people at will, just being like a gigantic asshole to everybody.
This will win him to my side.
Yeah. I do like, though, the first thing that happens, like when Luke lands on Joe Mark, is Sabaoth reads his mind, and Luke is like, this is what I've been doing to people. This is a pretty shitty thing to do. Because like he feels like his mind is being invaded. Like Sabaoth says all these things basically that like Luke's been thinking, or he just kind of taps in and has a little insight into what Luke's thinking, and Luke's like, well, this doesn't feel very good. Basically having my mind like violated.
He's like a personification of everything Luke is afraid of becoming or being if he misuses his powers.
In which he is in like certain books, like parts of New Jedi Order, or like
yeah, and in those he's actually going around shirtless too. So he's really took a lot away from Sabaoth.
Yes, I do like how Luke has one outfit. He's got like his black Return of the Jedi robes. He just wears everywhere. Yeah, like in the book cover.
Mara actually spends as much time as possible, like getting as far away from him as possible. It's very subtle in the books, but there's a definite smell lingering around him.
Yeah, that's the thing that keeps bringing on her visions of Palpatine. It's just like the overwhelming odor of Luke. But yeah, what do you think about? I guess what do you think of Juice at this point? Like as a kind of main villain, as a dark Jedi, like what are his motivations overall? How tied is he to the Empire? Like, I don't know. Tell me what you think of the man.
I think he works as a symbol. Like he's clearly, he doesn't really play in as a villain for much of it until he becomes like the final big bad boss for Luke.
Yeah.
But he's really just there as a symbol and warning for Luke. And even Thrawn's thinking at some point, like, hey, how do we write this guy out of the plot?
Yeah.
Like,
at the very end, especially.
At the end of the book, he's like, he's not doing what I'm telling him to, so...
Yeah. He's like,
I regret this immensely.
Space dementia is just getting worse and worse.
He, like, directly mind controls people from huge distances, and Thrawn's like, maybe I misplayed this one.
He steals his Lancer. Yeah. No, totally. It is interesting, though, because last episode I was talking a bit about... Because one thing this book deals with, probably even more than the last one, is it's still trying to figure out how like Star Wars works, and like this one kind of
Yeah.
exposes how there's some issues with like how Jedi are treated. There's a lot of issues with how like populated the Force is with Force users. He's like, at one point, Sabayoth's like, "There's another one out there." I'm like, Kyle Katarn. It's Cornhorn.
It's Cookrock.
Yeah, it's the ghost of Deb Sabwara. But no, so this book is like it's it's much smaller sort of scale. Another
Mhm.
interesting thing too is it kind of doubles down with that Dark Jedi thing that I was kind of thinking. And I couldn't really put my finger on why it felt weird to me in the last book. And in this one, they explicitly call Palpatine, for example, a Dark Jedi,
Yeah.
which obviously he wasn't.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Because, like, obviously the idea of a Sith hadn't been a thing yet because
exactly.
the whole
Yeah.
Noghri were going to be the Sith. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they don't say the word Sith, do they, in the original trilogy at all?
no. Well, they say. I think they say it in the movies, but like the idea of Vader as Lord of the Sith is established, but what the Sith are isn't, and Palpatine as a Sith isn't either.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
The interesting idea of Palpatine being like kind of just a figurehead was interesting too. Do you ever read that like in the prologue for A New Hope, the novelization? There's like an interesting little thing about how Palpatine was like initially a noble kind of senator who was manipulated by this like dark cabal. They even say Palpatine by name, so it's kind of interesting. Yeah, his name went back that far. And then there's like when the prequels came out, a lot of people were like, Senator Palpatine, is he actually the Emperor? And everyone who just read these books is like shaking their head.
It seems like they didn't really like. No one really knew what the intention with Palpatine was exactly, or what his connection was to anything until a lot closer to the prequels. And I guess
Yeah.
Dark Empire, there was a lot in there, but I feel like a lot wasn't said explicitly there either.
Yeah, you're probably
It was
right.
just more Force storms and stuff,
Yeah.
because we had established that he could use the Force by then, but not exactly what like. We knew Vader was a fallen Jedi, so it seems like some people made the assumption that Palpatine was also a fallen Jedi.
Right.
That may be where
Yeah.
the Dark Jedi thing came from, or it may have just been like a blanket term for dark side user.
I do kind of like the idea of the purge, because like one thing that's different in this book too is the Jedi purge. I mean, it's similar in a way. Obviously, there's no explicit mention of clones, but just like Vader
Well, there's
being
actually a
much
lot of
more-
mentions of clones in this book if you pay attention.
clone troopers, Order 66. But they basically mention in this book it's the Emperor and Vader personally did a lot of the hunting, and Vader
Yeah.
was assisted by other Dark Jedi, which is kind of a cool idea. I don't know. In lore, were there other? I guess the Inquisitorius.
Yeah,
technically.
Inquisitorius and now Inquisitors. Some of the Emperor's hands ended up being like
Right.
that. But like Tremaine leading all of his Inquisitors doing that.
Yeah. I kind of like how the new canon has handled that too.
Yeah, me too.
Besides for the flying lightsaber thing was a little
that
goofy.
I don't like that. I like almost everything else about it.
Yeah, the helmets are cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So about Sabayoth though, like it's really interesting too how his character like because he's basically just a more insane version of the Outbound Flight at this point.
Yeah.
Because he's basically all about like I was thinking when reading this that Sabayoth is basically what a gray Jedi would actually be like, because he doesn't want to be evil, but he does want to rule. He thinks at least he wants to rule benevolently, because he does like dispense justice and stuff, but sometimes he also electrocutes people, he hurts people, he kills people. He's basically like he thinks he's a probably a light sider. He thinks he's a true Jedi, but he's been so corrupted. In the Outbound Flight, when it's still Joruus Sabayoth, not Joruus Sabayoth, that more comes down to, from what I remember, he kind of just wants to control everybody on the Outbound Flight.
Mm-hmm.
Like he thinks that the Jedi are like or Force users are like enlightened beings, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just the mostly Force lightningless version of this. Though he
yes,
does Force choke
Force choke,
Thrawn
yeah.
in Outbound Flow. Like, he was clearly, even non-clone Joris was clearly going insane. And
he's an asshole, for sure.
part of that probably changed because of the whole clone madness was no
Mhm.
longer a part of the canon at that point.
Yeah.
Because for so long it was like the Clone Wars were a bunch of clones going mad and attacking the Jedi or attacking the galaxy. So Jorah's Cabal Sabaoth was a representation of that, but now it's like, oh no, being a clone doesn't actually. That's not what that was.
Well,
So
I think I read something about this in the Essential Guide to Warfare the other day. I think they still say that the Sparti methods do still have madness. That's like one of the drawbacks. It's like the Camino clones are so good because it takes so long, but they don't have the same type of madness. So I mean, it still does make sense. That
some of it gets worked in with the with a lot of that, and then there's some talk. I think there was some other stuff in Plagueis that was talking about it when they're making the other clones for the
there's
Yukori.
there's another type too, and it's just like they just suck. They're not like crazy; they just suck. But yeah, it is interesting because to me he's like that's like kind of a gray Jedi would be like, because I don't really much like the idea of gray Jedi. But this book in particular and the Thrawn duology really like touch on the idea of Luke purposely holding himself back like a lot from using his Force powers.
Yeah.
Even like what other books would consider mundane things like tricking somebody, like using a Force suggestion. Luke is like very, very careful about doing that.
Yeah.
Some of that is like because he just doesn't know at this point, and that's like one of the things Sabaoth is trying to use to get him to join his side. He's like, you loser. Do you even know like what time Jedi class is supposed to start in the morning?
I kind of like that representation of Jedi as like the biggest thing the Jedi need to learn is restraint rather than how to use their power. Like it's not as big a build up to like figure out how you can access that because it's supposed to be this all encompassing thing. Yeah. So as soon as you've got that connection, you need to learn how to not misuse it rather than how to like pick up bigger objects with it.
Yeah, although to be fair, in these books you also see masters are like given a lot of like deference. Like to be a Jedi master is like holy shit. Like they talk about the battle between Yoda and the Dark Jedi. I think that's in Heir of the Empire. They talk about that battle being like days long. In this book, like Jorah calling himself master. People are like, oh, like we'll see. And like, I guess we get that a bit in the last book too.
Yeah, there's less of an idea of like a centralized Jedi order with the Jedi Council handing out promotions. It's just there's those pairs of learners and masters, and then you go along the path from like learner, knight, master, and like Jorah just appoints himself Jedi Master. So Anakin should have tried that. He never really
that's true
sat down. He just don't say anything about it. They're like, oh, thanks for the promotion, guys. I'm on the council.
They're like,
I understand your concern. Master Windu, what do you think about this? Well, Skywalker.
Just take
Master
your
Skywalker.
Jedi nuts out and just put them on the table.
Master Skywalker, yeah. So, just it's like if someone gets your name wrong and it goes long enough that you're like, just go with it. Because you feel like at that point you're the asshole.
Now.
Yeah. So it's like Mace will just be thinking, "Oh, was I wrong? Is he?" And then all the other Jedi Masters are like, "Oh no, maybe I just missed that meeting." So they're all on their phones or something, and then I'll just get Obi-Wan in on it too, because he'd back up his boy.
It's all you really need.
Master Skywalker, do you think?
Like Yoda's like, did he say that right? It's like, yeah, but that is interesting because it does certainly seem like the order was much like more decentralized. We get that a bit with the Chunthar or whatever it's called too, like and the discussion of the Jedi and courtship. Like it really kind of just seems like they were traveling mystics and not mystics, but traveling like monks. Spiritual people, monks. They help with like disputes and stuff, which is a cool aspect. Like Jedi, like helping to solve disputes. I guess we get a bit of that in like the Phantom Menace because that is technically what they're doing.
Yeah,
And
where Qui-Gon tries to upset the local currency, rip off a local shop dealer. Although, to be fair, that shop dealer was a slave owner, so he can go fuck himself.
Yeah, that's true.
But,
that is true. But it's certainly like I don't think there's very many people after seeing the original trilogy would have predicted the Jedi would be like they were.
no, probably not.
Maybe like they were in the Phantom Menace, but like especially in like later, like the later two prequels and with the Clone Wars and stuff, the Jedi is like this huge, like very formalistic, like apparatus, you know?
Yeah, we kind of get the sense that that's the impression the galaxy has, where like the great warriors and stuff. Like Luke is expecting a great warrior when he goes to see Yoda. All the stories he's heard about the Jedi with the Clone Wars. So at least that aspect was definitely there. So maybe, and what we know now is that like the Jedi became kind of warriors in the Clone Wars. Kind of against their will. That wasn't what they do and hadn't been. And I guess with other later stuff, we get like the Knights of the Old Republic style and Sith War style, where they're like all warriors all the time ruling the Republic.
Yeah,
which was even farther in that direction in a weird way. But
yeah, like they never really capture that sort of samurai, like feel, I guess. Just like a Jedi. Like part of that's probably because of the fact that the two Jedi that we see are hermits, maybe. So maybe that's kind of what we expect the other ones to be like as well. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of comparison. It's also interesting too because despite the fact that the Jedi are gone so long, in this, like, there's a lot of people who still really respect the Jedi, and when Luke, like, they recognize him right away as a Jedi, and they bring all these associations of him being like a peacekeeper and a solver of disputes and stuff. When like a lot of other material talks about how like the Empire painted the Jedi to be evil. Like Han Solo doesn't know what the Force is in Episode 4. So it's kind of, to me, that's like a little bit of a contradiction almost.
I think it kind of works if you look at where they are with stuff. So if a lot of this stuff with not trusting it is more in the core where the propaganda was most effective. But then if you look at like the Jedi's #1 fan club, the Barabels, that's way out by Hutt space. Yeah. So even if just accidentally it ended up working really well, in my opinion. And one of my favorite parts about Star Wars is just the Jedi Barabel fan club.
Yeah.
Like Sab is the greatest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
She's like the main thing I'm looking forward to getting to New Jedi Order.
That's a while. Isn't she? Doesn't it take her until
she's not until like later half.
Yeah.
I think like when Luke's setting up the council.
I forget which book it is, but it starts with the planet being destroyed. Well, her planet is like, is it Barab?
Yeah, Barab 1.
Like, yeah,
and it's like the transport ships, and they're the little Barab stars
floating
she
around blows
in space.
It up. Yeah.
Everyone on the Jedi Council for the New Jedi Order is like just super PTSD.
Yeah, there's been like some rough goes. But what do you think of? I guess on that note, what do you think of the fact that Sabayoth can apparently sense Mara, and she's notable as a Force user in the galaxy?
I think if I were to retcon what's going on with that, like my personal retcon for that would be, it's not that he's sensing what she's doing, he's sensing the remnants of Palpatine's power. Yeah. Because like clearly like the whole you need to kill Luke, that's stuff that Palpatine's either doing from beyond the graves or / from Biss. So
or just some sort of training, perhaps.
Yeah, and that's why
mind control.
Yeah, and that's why it registers to him on his Force-o-meter when there's like 10 trillion other Jedi that survived the Jedi Purge, and like Corran is out there using the Force to kill TIE fighters at this point. Empatogeus Brand is floating around somewhere. That's the third Empatogeus Brand reference on the podcast ever. He comes up a lot for someone who's
I can't wait till we get to Dark Empire. And I mean, even if there weren't Jedi, there would still be forceful beings.
Yeah.
Always. Like there's like whole rock like species that rely on the Force. Like there are those rock crystals, the Sill. Like he's like, "Oh, I sense 10 million pieces of stone."
Yoda's got to have a planet out there with little Yodas on it all over the place.
Just waiting to be merchandised.
It's coming, and God help us all when it does.
I really like, I gotta say, I really like that theory. And I think one of the coolest parts of this book, actually, is the part where they go to Endor and Leia is like basically knocked on her ass, like when they pass through where the Death Star was blown up.
Palpatine just really leaves this giant mark of darkness everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
And I that was kind of a weird thing where it's like, so considering the galaxies orbiting and the planets are orbiting and the galaxy's not really orbiting, but the galaxy's moving. So was it like this little spot of dark side that orbits the moon?
Chewie is probably just like, yeah, sure. She's like, Chewie, was the Death Star blown up? And he's like, yeah. It's like, no, like she had a stroke. Like, she had a very serious like medical event. Chewie's just bullshitting her. They're, like not even around the same moon of Endor.
He went to the wrong planet.
He's like, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. That's a cool part. He's like basically made a wound, and then Mara shows up, and she's just like kind of like not feeling it, but for other reasons, just because.
Yeah,
it's just like her lost.
Like,
history.
Luke, I want to kill you, but this guy's crazy.
Yeah, basically.
But we do get two kind of instances of seeing what Luke's instincts are with the whole peacekeeping or mediating side. So, like, we get what he does on his own on Nukov with Lando and Farrier, or the Rodian and the Barabel.
Yeah.
And where he is, like, trying to find a compromise and a fair thing for everyone.
Yeah.
And then we get what Sabayoth wants him to do, which is, like, no, just fry him, Luke.
Yeah, because for Sabayoth, it's not really about actually doing good. It's more just about dominating people.
Yeah, it's letting people know that he's the one who ultimately gets to make the decision, whether that decision is right or wrong.
Yeah, like he's like basically on like a planet, like the most technology they have is some droids and like cabins basically, and he's just like sauntering down from his castle just to like this place is doing fine, but he just wants to cause shit essentially. I do like though when he breaks into the house, like when the two people are about to fight and he knows them by name.
Yeah.
Oh, that was funny. It's like, John, put that thing down.
By the way, am I still coming for dinner on Sunday?
So yeah, it is kind of, you can tell like he's been doing this a lot, like just been down there causing problems and whatnot. Although no one seems to really dislike him, which I thought was interesting. No one was scared of him.
I think. So, well, I thought the implication was that they're all just scared of him.
Really? Because Luke says he didn't feel like any sort of. I think he says he didn't feel fear, more just like people watching.
Maybe, but like, at least the way Sabayoth described it, it sounded more like, oh, they're all. No one likes to be here. Yeah. Even eventually, they all learn to just listen. It was in their best interest to listen to me. It's almost like they don't like. He's just some crazy old man who comes down from the mountain. Is like
make him the throne.
Okay. Okay.
I just imagine like there's like no disputes. So like
they make shit up.
He like someone like knocks over a bottle of water and he's like dispute. Like I'm getting in my chair. Like come over here.
He's like a bored retired Judge Judy.
Like oh my god, like just leave us alone. It's like oh he's coming down from the mountain again. Everyone go stage a knife attack.
Is there anything else you want to cover with Sabayoth right now? We basically get the he's ignoring Thrawn's orders. He just wants to play on his planet with Luke. Luke's not feeling it.
No, not at all.
Then
Luke is like, this is not very cash money.
We get the his end goal. He does ask to, or he tells Thrawn he's going to administrate Mount Tantus from now on. Yeah, and that's when Thrawn's like,
he's like, I don't know about that one. No, I mean, yeah, they do a really good job, or Timothy Zahn does a really good job of just making him seem totally like crazy because Thrawn does, well, I guess Thrawn doesn't help that much, but Luke is delivered there, and Joris just basically scares him away because he's insane. He's always like just gazing off at nothing. He's just being real weird. And like he just comes to like Thrawn just pissed, even though it was like completely his fault that he's a total weirdo.
Yeah, like
Um,
when Mara describes what's going on, like he tried to kill me. Luke is just not surprised at all. Like,
like,
yeah,
I was like, yeah, he did that to me too.
that makes sense.
This threw rocks at my ship. Yeah.
But we do get crap. There was something else I was going to say about him. I no longer remember what it was. But
was it about his big muscly chest?
That's probably what's distracting me, what threw me off. But
More like yeah. The cover of the last book, more like hair to the Empire, because he's got a sick flow.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving on.
So I guess do you want to talk about our Imperial pals next? What Thrawn and Pelion are up to this whole book adventure?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of trackers.
Yeah,
it's a lot of following people around. Like honestly, I wouldn't say the plot is convoluted, but it is a little convoluted. Like the details of what they're doing, it's like a lot of following people places,
right,
trying to find, and then later trying to find the Katana fleet. I don't even know, like what where do they start off doing in this book? I guess they start off with Thrawn's attacking Merkur, basically to avenge Talon Card's sort of interactions with Luke and saving Luke and stuff. It is kind of interesting how like there's almost like does like Thrawn ever like say the word the Force? He always just talks about like tricks and stuff. Like that's one of his kind of his weaknesses, and it's kind of interesting how Thrawn like tries to bend the Force as a bad guy. Like I think one of the themes is like the way he bends the Force, or he uses the Islamari to negate the Force, or when
his only interest in it is his specific uses for it, so he kind of gets blind to what else what it's actually doing. And it doesn't really come like that, ends up not factoring as much into his downfall. It kind of does with how Joris doesn't want to listen to him, but since he's not defeated necessarily on the battlefield, it's not as impactful. But
it is interesting that like the very first battle, Mara and Talon only escape because like the exact opposite happens for Mara. She's like forced to listen to it when she like doesn't want to. Like they only escape because she gets a hunch, and she's like, oh, fuck, goddamn, I gotta listen to this. So it's kind of interesting how like Thrawn's doing whatever he can to like negate the Force. He literally has things that move the Force away from him when like the good guys win, because they have these hunches and they kind of just trust their instincts and stuff. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. Thrawn is like perfect when it comes to planning, but in this especially, we start to see like a few little cracks that he can't really control for. They're just mistakes that he makes because
it's like symbolically it's kind of indicating that like what Thrawn is doing is wrong, what the Empire is doing is wrong, and the Force as the metaphysical god entity of the Star Wars universe wants Thrawn and the Empire to lose. So as good as Thrawn is, like it's not something he's ever going to be able to do. But it was something I also wanted to bring up, where the amount that Thrawn tries to micromanage or withhold information, especially from what we see with his interaction with Pelion, it's not like he hides that much, but he doesn't want to explain himself unless he absolutely has to. And he just wants people to execute what he's doing or what he's saying. And it kind of just paralleled his criticism of the Imperial fleet under Palpatine as well, with the battle meditation, where like Palpatine was using the Force to do it. Thrawn isn't necessarily, like Thrawn is trying to do that, but he's failing. But he's basically treating his own strategic skill as this new battle meditation where the fleet, like, he's just going to tell people exactly what they're doing. He's not was it last book or this book where it was like, you don't need to understand, only obey?
That's this book. Well, yeah, they said, I'm trying to remember when they say it at one point. The last book, I think, the very beginning at the battle, but they do say it in this one as well.
Yeah, and like he's not quite as bad as Palpatine in that, but it's like his downfall ends up being his inability to see, like, not the inability to see it, but like he downplays the human element or the Nogri element of people.
Totally.
Where he doesn't explain these things to his crew. He does, or at least to Pelion, who is supposed to be his second in command and who he should be hoping it becomes more in on things. Like, he'll give Pelion the chance to figure things out, but only when it's relevant that Pelion be able to do that stuff. And he ignores how the Nogri actually function. Just assumes that because I'm supposed to be in charge, I'm going to be in charge.
Yeah, and that's kind of, we talked about that a bit last episode with, like, one of Thrawn's only weaknesses in last book, at least, is the way he treats his subordinates. And like, we see even more of that in this. Like he just straight up, like, he pisses the Nogri off. Like, he is not a benevolent ruler, and if he was a benevolent ruler, that, like, if Thrawn had helped the Nogri heal their planet, they would have still served him, just because they're like a very loyal people. Arguably, that's the Emperor's issue, but regardless, he goes there. His way of getting loyalty is blowing one of their mountains up, and Leia's there. Like, and because, like, the Nogri aren't loyal enough, like, basically, I mean, ultimately he gets killed. He gets assassinated, but, like, they harbor Leia from him. You know, like, a lot of big issues. And you're right. That's one thing that's quite a bit different too about new canon Thrawn. Not with Pelion, but with, like, Eli Vanto. He always, in the first, when he is with Eli, he goes out of his way to help him understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's a lot more of a Sherlock and Watson instead of, like, Sherlock and Ghosted Watson.
Yeah.
Left on Red Watson.
Left on Red. Yeah, exactly. Left on Red Watson. That's pretty funny.
I guess one other thing to bring up with Sabayoth, to circle back to that, is when he's talking about droids and how droids are abominations separate from the Force. Very Star Wars specific way to bring up something that you tackled in a recent video. Oh, yeah. Do you want me to? Yeah, if you want to. If there's anything you have to add to that, just.
No, just, like, it's kind of funny how they talk about that. Then, like, after we get a scene with, like, Luke basically spilling his heart out to R2. Because Luke's like, I don't know, I kind of like droids. Yeah, I mean, in this book, there's not really, like, that much context, I guess, with, like, the some other books we get more stuff about droid rights, but it is interesting how, like, honestly, C-3PO and R2-D2 are two of the most likable characters in this series, and yeah, they're still always just droids, you know?
Yeah, and, like, it's kind of the same, like, the idea we see Luke doing that after we see Sabayoth saying, like, no, they're abominations. It's the same thing that we get with Thrawn and his approach to things versus the Rebels or the New Republic, and how they approach things, or just our protagonists in the book, where it's the difference between doing what's ordered and doing what's right, where Thrawn is just getting everyone under him to do what's ordered, and where Leia is disobeying certain orders and policies that are, even if they're the legal thing that they're supposed to do or what she's told to do, she goes and does the other thing because it's right. And you get, like, for the battle with the Katana fleet, Leia is, like, going unauthorized, Han is going unauthorized. They get specifically get asked by Card to find an X-Wing squadron who is, like, willing to do this even if it gets them in trouble. So I think that comes up a lot in this book. I wasn't really paying attention to it in the last book as much. I don't think that theme is there quite in the same way, but it's something I'm going to try to keep looking for in Last Command.
Well, one thing I guess a little bit is that we see like Akbar talk like they talk about how Akbar doesn't have respect for Han and Lando, despite the fact that Han and Lando are out there on the beat, like literally doing everything they can for the New Republic this entire time. So is Leia. They're not commissioned, and honestly, um, Han and Lando aren't really following any official direction, but they're still operating for what's good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But part of that, we will get more of that next book because we get it with Akbar, and then on the other hand, we have someone like Phalia, who technically does have, as you kind of alluded to, with the final battle, he does have a certain level of authority, but he's not doing what's good for the New Republic. He's almost totally self-centered to the point of like almost comically evil.
Yeah.
Like at the very end, like the New Republic finds this incredible resource, or at least they think they do. And he doesn't want them to have it right away because he thinks it'll make him look bad.
Yeah. So for those of you who didn't read the book, Phalia is basically in contact with Garm Bel Iblis, hoping he'll be able to bring Garm Bel Iblis and the Katana fleet into the Republic. And then Card gives the New Republic the information on where it is. So Leia goes to get it. Phalia is trying to like delay so he can still take credit for it. Mm-hmm. And he gathers up all of his best supporters and heads out. But my favorite part of that is that all of his best supporters filled up one escort.
Yeah, and he pisses them off.
He gets a captain and the crewers, and the reason Card and Leia figure out the reason he doesn't want to engage is because if that ship goes down, then he loses everyone loyal to him. And it's like the entire New Republic, and you have like 36 guys who were...
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of weird. I feel like the end of the book was a little bit disconnected from the rest. It's weird because this book reminds me a lot of book 2 of the Thrawn duology, where they're kind of looking for this like MacGuffin. In that book, I guess it's like the list of the Bothans or whatever who helped with the Kamos shield generator, or who went in and sabotaged the Kamos shield generator.
Yeah.
In this one, it's the location of the Katana fleet, and there's like 3 or 4 different ways that, well, in the Thrawn duology, there's like a bunch of different people out looking for it in different ways. There's like a raid on a space station and stuff and whatever else, but then they find it almost accidentally, and it's kind of like the same in this book. It's like Han and Lando spend much of the book looking for the Katana fleet and stumbling kind of over themselves finding it. Or not finding it, and then in the end, Luke kind of just gets it, because he is doing something completely separate. And then at the very end, there's kind of like a little jump. They're all kind of back. Leia's accomplished something. Han and Lando, not really, although they did get Bel Iblis, which ends up being big, but kind of like they literally just stop everyone's kind of like storylines stop at the exact same point.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice because it was starting to get a little too complex for me, because it's like, okay, Han and Lando were at this planet, then they meet Garm Bel Iblis, then they learn about this. Why were they at the planet in the first place? What was Luke doing? And it's like too much, but then they take a break and reset.
Because they were potentially going to be going to check out some accounts, and then they end up there, and then Garm Bel Iblis captures them, and then they end up going to Polani, and Thrawn thinks, they're going to be on Nukov because they're going to check out the accounts, or they're going to go to Polani to get, like, it gets kind of weird. And then there is kind of I was thinking kind of the same thing with how Thrawn ultimately loses, and it is a good payoff to the Nogri story, and like his main weakness being that he doesn't see that betrayal coming, and that he did everything he could to basically push them towards that. But it does also kind of mean the rest of the plots beyond Leia's don't factor in as much. Because if nothing else, then it's just that they're kind of delaying Thrawn's ability to kill them all. But
no, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean that's a good way to put it, and because this book is a hard reset, like we're basically at the same point we are, just the ass has been shifted around, a little bit. So like the Noghri aren't for the Empire, but the Empire now has this other. And the only really remaining plot point, I guess, that is not resolved, moving into the next book would be the issue with like the political instability and Akbar. But besides for this, it's basically like, okay, this first part is completely done. The dreadnoughts have been dispersed. However, they have been. The Republic getting like 15 or 14 or 13, however many. They're all shitty ones. But yeah, and so now is like the third book is now like the true campaign is about to start, because really these first two, which is why I think I like number 3 the most, but really these first two have just been kind of like prep.
It is a lot of setup, yeah. But I guess to get back to I guess Thrawn's weakness and just where the Imperials are at. I'm trying to see where my note was for that, but it wasn't a very helpful note because I just wrote Grand Admiral's Throng as a pun, I guess, for myself. But it's what was that for? Because I did note the stuff about how Thrawn very early on, like Pelion was like, "Oh, is that smart to like piss off the Noghri?" And Thrawn was like, "They'll remember they served me, but maybe I should look into that. That the Noghri might be upset that they're being taken off this."
Yeah, he makes a pretty big mistake too when he makes one big intuition mistake, which he doesn't make very often, when he doesn't think Leia will have came to Kashyyyk, because he's not able to suss out why Kabarak, like the lost month, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Everything he gets to with that is
that's like he makes a lot of mistakes there. It's kind of funny because I was thinking, because last time I read this book, this is just a weird thing. I didn't have a dog. I didn't have a dog when I last read this book. But this time when I was reading it, I was thinking about Chewie being inside the shuttle. And I was like, man, they're definitely gonna find Chewie hair in there. I couldn't remember that they did. I even wrote it down, Chewie shuttle hair, and then of course he does. They find like microscopic versions, but it wouldn't be like microscopic. It'd be like Chewie left a fuzzball over here.
Yeah. But he did break the ship properly, so it all evens out. But
did you take a vacuum over it?
So what my note for that was I don't believe Skywalker is going to Palanhi. Our esteemed Jedi Master apparently called him. And Organa and Solo and the Wookiee are trying to find a place to hide from our Noghri, but Solo will be going to Palanhi. So his whole sussing out of everything there was just from his plant friend, and he starts relying too much on the plant friend and not kind of realizing that Sabayoth, for one thing, is like screwing shit up.
Yeah, right. Because the Palanhi is where he did the fake transfer, but if I'm remembering right, Han basically figures out that it's something to do with Bothan, so he looks at planets where there's likely Bothan holdings. Right? Isn't that?
Yeah, they were looking into like what planets did the Bothans have a strange interest in.
Yes.
And then there was more about like Kabarak later, where what you were talking about, and then he gets someone to like watch Kabarak, and Pelion's like, "Oh, are we gonna get one of our people to do it? When are they gonna do it?"
Yeah.
Pelion kind of takes a step up in this book as like
he does
checking Thrawn and his bullshit.
He does make Pelion does make one really big mistake though.
Which one's that? Staying with the Empire long after they're relevant and assuming that their policies aren't shit?
No. When Han and Mara sneak aboard the Star Destroyer and they find the crashed shuttle or the crashed starfighter nearby, and it's got the nutrient, it's got the Islamari, and he's like, oh, that's strange. But he doesn't think it's a big deal. But
yeah, that I did think that was weird.
One planet from Merkur.
And they knew, like, they literally watched two of Card's people crash skip raids before.
Exactly.
They know Card has access to these Almari. Yeah,
that's what I was expecting, because I was expecting Thrawn to say, hold up, what did you say? What kind of starfighter? But yeah, he doesn't even mention.
Yeah.
It might be something like, this book clearly planned dreadnoughts to be much more common than they were later on. And maybe they were thinking the same thing would happen with skip raid blast boats. Keep saying they. I mean Timothy Thrawn.
But
But yeah.
there was something I wanted to bring up with Pelion as well,
Mhm.
really early on, like right at the start of the book,
Sure.
where he's talking about uh, like Thrawn's meteoric rise, despite the fact that he was Chiss and the Emperor's well-known anti-alien
Yeah.
prejudices.
I was gonna bring that up
So
too.
the implication there being not that it was institutionally as racist
Mhm.
or speciest, but that it was something that Palpatine harbored.
Yeah.
Whereas I think,
I think it's just a mistake. Or, I mean, you could explain it by the fact that Pelion just doesn't know. But I mean, the thing I don't get is Palpatine is always seen with aliens. He's seen with Masamita. And what's her name?
yeah,
Sly Moore all the time. Um,
but
but I don't think Palpatine actually. I think Palpatine's way too smart to actually be racist or
yeah, like
xenophobic.
he just sort of plays into that. But
So
I
yeah,
do
it's a
think like
useful
the
tool.
interesting thing I thought about it was like how Pelion ends up seeing the Empire and the Emperor, where
Mm,
he's not as attached to the Emperor, and he kind of, I think we kind of see throughout his development as a character for the next like
mhm.
600 books is
Yeah.
that he's attached to this ideal of an empire that never really existed, and he
Yes.
kind of piled all of the bad shit of the empire onto Palpatine himself and a few bad eggs.
Yes. Yeah, and then because we get some of that in, I think it's Legacy of the Force, but I mean we first get quite a bit of it in, well, with the whole Dala stuff, and then later in the Thrawn duology, book one. I guess that's him kind of realizing too that at the beginning he's realizing that the Empire's screwed, and then later he realizes that like the Empire can still exist. It has to be pragmatic. But you're right, he does realize later on, like as he becomes the true supreme commander, that like the Empire was kind of shitty before and never really. You're right. They never really did exist in this way that he's retroactively imagining them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Uh,
But do you think Palpatine was actually racist? Like to me, that was just a tool to create division, which is useful, especially you can.
yeah, I think like Palpatine thought everyone was below him. Like the best
Yes.
insight we get into Palpatine is from uh
Plagueis?
Plagueis,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to trust that for most things because James Lucino. But
Hmm.
uh, he doesn't. If it were just like a blank slate of what he wants his policies to be, I don't think there'd have been much focus on uh, like alien versus human
Hmm.
to the same extent. But
Right.
he he's racist in effect in that he's super okay with playing into it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right.
ultimately,
It
what's
doesn't
the
matter in the end
difference?
because yeah, I think like Palpatine hates everybody equally, or not
Yeah.
equally, but he hates everybody based on factors other than their whether they're an alien or whether they're weak or strong or
Yeah, it's just
against him.
what is he going to do that's going to get him the most power and get him what he wants? He is just a sociopath.
Yes.
So, he
Yeah, he's pretty. He like there's nothing redeeming about him. He's That's why I don't really like the stupid theories that always pop up on Reddit or whatever. Did you know Palpatine actually created the Death Star to prepare for the Yuuzhan Vong?
yeah, like that's definitely like that's part of the retconned justification for uh why a lot of or
I
part of
don't
what
even
he's
know if
trying
it
to do with
is.
the well
I
Thrawn. That's Outbound Flight. Thrawn is doing that, and then Palpatine's concerned about it, but he's
Yeah, but Palpatine
he's
would have made the
concerned about
Death
the
Star
Yuuzhan
either
Vong and
way.
the Siruvi in a way that like it's he's concerned about them as threats to his power,
Hmm.
and the Death Star is a good way to keep his power, but it's also going to be useful against a world ship.
Yes, that's one thing I like about this book too. It talks about how like the Death Star and the Grand Admirals served as ways for him to keep his power even tighter. Because like the
Mm-hmm.
Navy is getting really big and expansive. He's like, okay, I'll make the one of our ultimate weapons something that I can control with like the snap of my fingers. And I've got these 12 Grand Admirals who are very, very loyal to me directly. Um, so like more and more, even though he's already emperor, he's trying to consolidate his power more and more so he can
Yeah,
like directly control everything. I really like that explanation for the Death Star. And I think like the whole Yuuzhan Vong thing misses the point completely.
Yeah.
Because I think the Empire would have won against the Yuuzhan Vong easily without without super weapons, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the Yuuzhan Vong weren't really that great. The New Republic was just really stupid.
Well, the galaxy had just spent like 60 years blowing itself up.
And Borsk Feli is in command, and he's like, they're being invaded in the Outer Rim, and he's like, they're invading the Outer Rim, and Borsk is like, are they though? Yes. Like they just dropped a moon on Cernpadal. Did they though?
Oh, Borsk. He's just gonna keep providing hours and hours of entertainment for us as we approach.
He's like
him
he's
getting blown up.
so annoying in this. And I will say his downfall's a little cheesy in this book. The whole turn on the comm and he says exactly the thing he shouldn't say.
Yeah, especially the thing that really bothered me about that is he had a 100% private conversation with Han, like 20 minutes before, or 20 pages before. He was very careful to say all the right stuff. Yes. And then he like Han doesn't have the same reputation like Leia has. If he'd even told Han like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Exactly. There's shit all you can do about it. Yep. Then sure, but he says that in front of Leia and Card. Mm-hmm. Like Card, not who cares as much, but he knows a smuggler with a reputation for giving information,
literally an information broker.
Like a person on the council that he is supposed to be appealing to in Leia, and it's like they'll take her word for stuff if you're saying this.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was willing to just go out and say all that, it doesn't jive with what he was doing himself in earlier scenes.
It's a pretty goofy moment,
and especially because he was saying like, or the book was saying like he wasn't taking his eyes off Card, and Card was holding up or like had just written on the data pad that Leia was now looking at.
Yeah.
So
I just imagine they're talking and Card just puts it in front of her face. It's like intercom and then puts it back.
Card's just holding it up while Borsk is looking at him.
He's like pointing at it. He's like, yeah. I mean, it's a little goofy, but I mean, it's not that bad. It's not a super important. I mean, it's a created conflict. Like it's a pretty contrived conflict anyway. So having it be handled in that way is probably okay. Mm-hmm. But we still have Ackbar in jail, and I do like the moment in this book where Thrawn's attacking the convoy, and they're using A-wings to defend themselves, and Thrawn's like, "Fucking idiots! A-wings aren't good escort fighters." And I guess he's like, "I guess we're seeing the impact of Admiral Ackbar not running the show."
Mm-hmm.
Cool little moment. Talked about that in a recent video. I don't remember which one.
Yeah, it was like the A-wings are really good at chasing down fighters, but if they're chasing down fighters, they're not going to be able to stay close and protect the convoy. So it's kind of like squandering all their strengths. Yeah,
yeah, and they've like totally dedicated themselves to speed. To like to other features are stripped back. So it's like you take that one thing away, and it's basically just like a shitty starfighter.
So I guess that kind of covers the Jorah stuff, the Thrawn and Pelion stuff. Anything with... So we've got Luke and Leia, Luke and Mara's Card rescuing adventure. Han and Lando's Katana fleet escapades with Garm Bel Iblis, and Leia's Nogri stuff. Do you want to just cover the rest of Leia's Nogri stuff first? Because that kind of ties more into the Imperial stuff we've just been talking about. If there's anything else to cover there, like this is mostly set
one
up.
Thing I want to say about one more Thrawn thing that didn't really make sense is during when they're on the Star Destroyer, Thrawn says they're going for the Millennium Falcon, but like there's no real way, because he's like, where they're trying to figure out where Luke, Mara, and Talon are going to go to, whether it's one of the shuttle bays, one of the big hangars, or whatever. And Thrawn's like, they're going to go for the Falcon in deep storage. But like Luke and them had no way to know that the Falcon was there.
Well, I think it was more that they're not going to go for the main hangars. They're definitely going to go for deep storage. And once they go for deep storage, they're going to see the Millennium Falcon there. So I think that one made sense. It's like, once they get to that point, that's what they're going to do. because he'd already ruled out the frontal assault bays
Yeah.
in the main
Yeah, he
hangars.
was like,
It was
if Talon is in command, he'll want to do something more nuanced or whatever.
yeah. And then once they do that, this is going to be the only conclusion they can reach. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay,
I think that's one
I
of
guess,
Thrawn's better conclusions there.
I mean, Thrawn doesn't have that many. He doesn't do that much in this. I mean, strategy wise, like running the campaign, but he certainly makes probably the kind of the coolest part is actually the fact that the battle for the Katana fleet doesn't even happen. Like
Yeah.
by the time they get there, it's all gone. I guess we'll talk about that more in a few minutes, but yeah, like you expect there to be this big kind of, and I really didn't remember how few ships are left. I thought there'd be a larger confrontation, but no, they're all gone. This Thrawn just, he's figured it out way ahead of everyone else. Most of that happens off screen, but we see the way he works through it, which is, cool.
Yeah, the
Sorry, I'm pouring a drink here.
no, I could hear the tinkling. But the Battle for the Katana fleet has some cool moments, but I do like that they kind of pay off the fact that they delayed too long, and like Card has kind of thrown in with the New Republic and played his hand now, but it was for nothing almost. They get
and he keeps acting like he hasn't.
Yeah, this is just for now.
Yeah,
we're not.
Thrawn keeps. Yeah, when like he's really went out of his way, especially at the end there with the Katana fleet, he's really went out of his way to help the New Republic, because I don't know. I personally think Talon Card's like a good, like a certain. I think it's pretty obvious he's a good dude at heart, and like even beyond at heart, like he makes it seem like he's just helping people because he owes a duty, and he does, but
yeah, Star Wars has a big thing with like smugglers being honorable, bounty hunters being the gross ones, which is how they ended up on the factions they did in the original Empire at War. But
on that note, this is way off topic, but have you seen the new documentary those people did on Shadows of the Empire? I think it was, I forget which YouTube channel it was.
No.
Someone in the chat, if they put on, but anyway, this YouTuber or like this channel did this big retrospective on Shadows of the Empire, and they commissioned all these really amazing. I meant to mention that at the beginning of the episode. That's the only reason why I'm saying it now. But that's another example of just smugglers with ultimately going way above and beyond. It's you're right. Same thing with Han. He acts like he's just in it for the money, but he consistently goes above and beyond that.
I think part of it comes from smuggling being like under the Empire. It's getting the supplies to people who need them mostly, but there's also the drug dealing. That's the dark side of smuggling. But it's usually portrayed as like, we need to get the supplies in past Imperial blockades and all that. Like, if you're breaking Imperial law, are you really breaking the law?
Yes,
that's kind of how it's presented. But
does Talon smuggle drugs? I can't remember.
He doesn't smuggle people.
Yeah,
we know that.
Which is good.
I think we have to assume he smuggles drugs. He was taking over after Jabba's empire collapsed. So, like Cardass and him, if they weren't moving drugs, then their clients were probably.
Have you read Tales from the Bounty Hunter? Tales of the Bounty Hunters, I mean? There's like
I was thinking, I haven't.
Yeah, so there's like one of them is from Boba Fett before he got like his retcon where he's still Jaster Mareel, or however it worked. I don't remember. But there's an interesting scene in that where, because Boba Fett used to be like almost this like religious conservative, like he's like no drugs, no sex, no relationship, kind of like just a different perspective of the Mandalorians. And there's one part where he's at Jabba's with Leia. It's a really dark scene because Jabba essentially offers Leia as like if Boba wants to have sex with her, which is like I don't like when Star Wars goes into that territory. I just don't think it's like,
ever handled well.
Yeah, it's not handled well. But and Boba doesn't, because he says something about how rape is not cool. But there's a scene where he goes off on Han Solo for like engaging in spice trading, because he's like, spice is like it's like the shit of the galaxy, like it ruins everything. So it like spice is pretty nasty shit, but
Yeah.
so it would be interesting. I don't know if we learn about that. I guess that was a bit of a tangent there, so I'm sorry. I don't know if
We
learn
don't
about
like
that.
tangents on this podcast, so if you can cut that out.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Tangents or Canadian pronunciation of things, so if you could just stop with that too.
No bagels.
No bagels, the plague isn't happening. We're going to be very vague about things, and we're about to keep going. So if anyone is offended by that, then I'm sorry.
So sorry.
So sorry.
What were we talking about?
I think we're moving on to Leia's
right
side story. We kind of like, a lot of this is just set up for the Last Command, so there's only so much we can really say about anything. Like Leia finds out through the rigged decon droid that like this has been going on for 45 years, and there's probably some stuff to say about the fuzziness of Star Wars timelines.
Yeah, it doesn't. It just doesn't work out. There's no possible way for it to work out, because it's like I think
episode
the
1.
battle would have been pre-episode 1.
Yeah.
I do really like, time issues aside, I do really, really like the scene where Leia finds out that they've been bullshitting her this entire, or that like she assumes that the big battle was like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
She's like, 40 years ago. Like they've been like,
I've been feeling guilty for no reason.
Yeah.
War is okay. Continue the raids.
Yeah, exactly. What did you think of the when she first appears at Honegger though? Like the Honegger stuff?
Yeah, I actually mostly enjoyed those scenes. I kind of liked I did too. The stuff between Cabrak and Chewie. And it just took a while for it to go anywhere, so there were a lot of scenes of them not really doing much with Leia on Honegger, because she's there most of the book until she ends up going back to Coruscant, and I think it's just supposed to be
Coruscant, right?
Yeah,
all the Kashyyyk stuff is last. What happens when I read them? All the Kashyyyk stuff is last.
Honegger?
No, like she's all off Kashyyyk on this book.
Oh yeah.
She goes back to Coruscant.
Yeah.
That's what happens when I read them, two of them right in a row. I get a little mixed up.
Yeah, so like they're on Coruscant, Han and her. They see each other for a day. Han's upset because we haven't seen each other for a month, and then he heads off with Lando and Luke to New Cov, and Leia goes off to Endor and then Honegger. And I think part of why we get like the scenes with her doing that and then doing very little for a lot of the book is because we're supposed to think like, oh, but we know Thrawn has the Millennium Falcon now, so she's going to go back and she's going to get caught. But then nothing ever pays off with that, because they just fly it back to Coruscant like, hey, Han, here's your ship. And Leia just gets flown directly to Coruscant.
And Han doesn't even take it at the end either. He takes a transport.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The Nogri are like surprisingly some species. It's like what I picked up rereading that
Surprisingly
section.
What? You cut off.
Surprisingly wholesome species.
Yeah.
Like they're very chill. Like I like that they're basically scaly Wookiees. Like they're all honor based. And yeah, I don't know. Like I enjoyed that section. It was cool about the race and stuff. I really like the matriarch is a cool character, I thought.
Yeah. Vor Kork is kind of a dick, but then even he makes a dry comment towards the end.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to remember how the audiobook pronounces his name.
Vorkor? Voror?
No, it's I don't even remember how it's spelled. Let me pull up the document.
VOR''CORKH.
I can't even remember. Yeah, that's the Nogri one are tough. Like even Cabrak is. So yeah, there's some tough ones.
I kind of want to start using Vorkork as a name for people who are just acting like complete dicks.
Oh, Vorkov is how it says it, I think.
Oh, that makes sense. You're being a total Vorkov right now. So I'm going to need you to stop.
He does kind of... I mean, it's understandable. And that's another thing I wanted to mention about Borsk, too. If you ignore the fact that Borsk is obviously self-serving, some of his reservations are reasonable, and I think the same with Vorkov as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's worried that the Empire is going to come and destroy his planet.
Yeah, and they will.
Yeah, they absolutely will. Borsk isn't worried about this, but there's certainly the possibility that Thrawn could have done the whole Katana fleet thing for a trap or to throw a fleet out of position or whatever else. So, yeah, it's interesting to think about.
Our main heroes are definitely like entitled children a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like they should be listened to just because they are them.
Yeah.
But my phone just died, so I need to open up notes on my computer again. But
sorry.
No, I was just gonna kill dead air, so you can
I was just gonna say Leia's journey in particular is very it's force based. It's just like she's giving it's like Luke's basically journey to Dagobah in episode 5. Like it's just she just feels like she has to do this, and she just keeps going off that gut instinct basically the whole time. Which I don't know, I thought it was pretty cool.
One of the things I didn't like about some of her plots is when she just like goes, "I am the Malariash," just kind of forces herself. Like the only thing she really knows about them is that they value Vader, and that they are similarly honor structured to the Wookiees. So like, what in that tells you like being other than like, oh, this must be how Vader acted. What in that tells you like the way to handle this is just be demanding. Like, I'm not just Vader's daughter. I am his heir. I'm the Malariash. Like you don't know what that word means.
Yeah.
If I just run into people, I'm the barista.
The barista. Yeah. You're right. That is a good point. She does a lot of winging it. Like we're supposed to kind of assume a lot about her diplomatic skills. Another thing that's kind of funny is when you remember with the scene where the Empire is coming back to Honegger, and she knows they're about to do a life form scan, and she's like, well, she's trying to think back to her training of how life form scanning works, and she's like, oh yeah, it's based on radioactive isotopes and like all the other really technical. Like, how the hell did she remember that? Like, and just like how Lando's is a bit more, they give an explanation for, but just like how Lando's like, oh, there's only one ship that used Navy seat cushions. The Katana fleet dreadnoughts.
Yeah, that upholstery was never used anywhere else. You can tell from the little K tag attached to it, actually.
Oh, look, yeah, it has on the back stitched only for Katana fleet dreadnoughts.
So, were the seats just like they put a slip cover over them? Like,
I don't know. Lando makes a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with Han and Lando, unless there's anything you want to say about like Niles Ferrier, the main thing with them is just talking about Garn Bel Iblis.
Yeah, I mean they do a lot of kind of prancing.
Yeah,
I bet you they just get. We said this last episode, but there's just like 4 or 5 day trips on the their various ships, whatever they're on at the time. I just feel like they must get drunk out of their minds and just play a lot of Sabacc.
Yeah, just Han and Lando flying around the galaxy.
Yeah,
when Han's not being wounded.
Yeah, I was just thinking, what if it turns out that there was no lead on the Coral Vana, and Leia's like, "Why were you on a gambling ship for 5 days?" He's like,
"I swear,
I thought there was a lead, and once it goes, you can't get off."
You expect me to believe you and Lando went to the most famous casino in the galaxy against your will?
Yeah, exactly.
Lando just wanted to get back to work.
We thought the Katana fleet was there.
Okay, Han.
That's funny. It's like too, because the Katana fleet's just like this legendary thing.
Yeah.
Pretty much made up. I was looking for the Katana fleet.
I was looking for the Fountain of Youth.
You're just gonna lie to me. That's funny.
You're sleeping with Chewie tonight.
Sleep with Chewie tonight.
But what's your take on Mr. Beliblis? Is his concern with Mon Mothma a reasonable one, or is he?
No, I don't. I mean, Mon Mothma's kind of she's not very likable. I think that's probably the point. I don't know. Like, I don't know enough about the sort of early Rebel era to know whether it's notable, or whether it's reasonable. But I do know that he's a total child later on. Like, oh, I don't want to I don't want to wound my pride, basically.
Yeah, like we are basically told like we're supposed to. Everyone thinks he's in the wrong, including his Arenas and Cena. So it's just he's very prideful, and I do kind of sympathize with the idea. Like he's just concerned that the Empire is just going to get a new emperor, but also like Mon Mothma wasn't. At least at this point, we don't know what she was doing that was so so Palpatine-y. Like we're told here that she wasn't listening to anyone except Bail, but at the same time, we're hearing that from someone who is clearly kind of petulant and wants to be the center of attention.
Three of them at the beginning, anyway. I guess there's like the generals and stuff too, but like that's ultimately how like command hierarchy would work during like a time of war too. Like, you're not always going to listen to everything your generals say, but like that's just the way it is, you know.
Yeah, and Beliblis was really more of a political leader too. He was a senator that just happened to be good at military strategy as well.
You're right.
And he.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I think part of it was that like he brought in the ships and stuff. But...
and like I kind of forgot about that, to be honest. Like I forgot that he is first and foremost a senator, because I think of him as General Bel Iblis.
Yeah.
Because he never, after this point, he's in canon in Legends quite a bit, but he never transforms back to Senator Bel Iblis. From this point on, he's General Garm Bel Iblis.
Yeah.
So even I was a bit kind of surprised about like I've read this book many times, but I forgot that that Han knows him as a senator and stuff.
Yeah, and it seems like his position as a general was probably intended to be like after this. Like Zahn doesn't seem to have any intention of him being General Garm.
All we really get is the bit with the Siege of Coruscant, but
yeah. And that's probably where he gets added to the military hierarchy, or how he gets like when he rejoins the New Republic, it's probably he's bringing his forces, he gets to be general, but
fine. Let him play with his dreadnoughts.
But he got the information on, or he bought his dreadnoughts from Hoffner.
Right.
So he's kind of got a line to the Katana fleet. And it's kind of weird that he like didn't put more, like he's clearly been years of this, but he didn't put much effort into be like, no, this is kind of important. So if you want
considering how cash strapped they are, like part of the thing is like who's he gonna like, he can't man them and he can't sell them to anybody because he doesn't want to sell them to the New Republic, in case he's like basically preparing to try to take the New Republic down if he needs to. Obviously he won't sell it to the Empire, so
But even just like getting the information off of Hoffner for himself, because like Hoffner, sounded like an alcoholic gambler, and as far as Garm Bel Iblis knows, that's the only person who knows where the Katana fleet is, and you'd think maybe he'd have more like if he's got the resources to buy some of the dreadnoughts, see if he can get like a Costco deal out of that, or
like, okay, when I ruin one, let me come back, get another one, please.
Yeah, like what's Hoffner going to do with them? He can't crew them. He may as well just sell.
He's basically just like sitting on them, because I doubt he's selling very many of them either.
Yeah,
because once you get one and you realize it's Katana Fleet Dreadnought only needs a small crew, like you're gonna realize what's going on. Because even Luke knew the story of the Katana Fleet from Tatooine.
I like how at one point. I think it was Card was like, if you want to use the melodramatic title, the Dark Force, and just like mocking it. But then I can't remember if it was Card or Garm, but like later when Mara's telling Luke about it, I think it was Mara telling Luke, might have been Han, and Han mentions it, and Luke's like, "The Dark Force." I just the view of Luke as like this dumb Tatooine kid, like Woody from Cheers.
Yeah, totally. I do like, yeah, the Dark Force is a pretty cool idea too. It's an interesting, like, I don't know, plot device, I guess. But yeah, it is cool how you see like Thrawn kind of sprinkle a little bit of Dark Force here, a little bit of Dark Force there, in like his next books, because we see a lot of like a lot of space battles.
Yeah,
the next book, and it's always like, oh, he had 10 Katana fleet dreadnoughts or whatever else.
Yeah, and like the big concern is like, oh, well, he's got the ships, but how is he going to crew those? They could just make ships if they really needed them. But that's where the clones come in. So like during the battle, they kill some people on the Katana, I think they're on.
Yeah.
And then they see that all their faces are the same. So they've got the clone troops already in production.
Yeah, and I guess those. So I guess they've already stolen all of the dreadnoughts that are good enough to take, and then it's like the ones that are left are just like, because you know the Katana's in really rough shape.
Yeah.
So I guess the ones that are left are just like the ones that need more work, but they're just growing the clones on it anyway, which is kind of a bad move by Thrawn, because he's kind of given away his plan. Like he could have surprised them with the Katana fleet, because the New Republic's like, okay, it sucks that we can't use them, but at least Thrawn certainly won't have 200,000 people ready, or 400,000, sorry, ready. But he kind of just has those clones being vatted on that ship anyway, so it's like...
Well, I think he was kind of going all in to make sure that they didn't get away, which they ultimately did, but he was hoping to be at the battle himself, but he had to take a call.
Yeah.
And then Peremptory gets blown up.
Oh, yeah.
So
Can't remember.
Whichever ship was going to aid it, like Thrawn could have ended up getting Dreadnought to the face, but he probably would have had a plan to deal with that.
He wouldn't have gotten in the face. It is kind of funny too, on that note of Garmbella. He comes and he's like, he thought it was a formal New Republic request for aid, and then he finds out it's not, and he's like, all right.
Yeah, no one even knows you're out there. What do you on about?
Yeah.
Like, and then Leia has to make it official.
Seems like Han kind of lied to him.
Yeah, true.
Like Han made it seem like it was coming from her.
Yeah. But Leia makes it official, and then he's fine. He's okay.
Yeah. He's like, all right. I will say, it does feel like they nailed the power dynamics between Dreadnoughts and Imperial Star Destroyers in this book. I felt like they did a good job.
Yeah. The 3 can sort of fight off 1, but they can't beat it. I think that's a decent way to set it up.
Yep. 6 with ion cannons can do like a...
Just disable it long enough to get away, even if they're not going to be able to destroy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the scale of some of the at least the way the ships relate to each other is pretty good for the Thrawn Trilogy.
What do you think about the Empire? Them feeling the Empire wouldn't have 400,000 officers. I guess that's probably true.
I
don't know, because like they've got, because the issue is 400,000 spare officers, right?
Yeah.
Because they've got millions and millions of 400,000 spare. I guess I can see. At first, I was like, "Oh, that feels really, really low to me. They should scrounge that up."
Well, you'd also be like shifting some people around, getting some of the new people onto other ships, putting seasoned people in charge of the new ones, and like spreading out your crew that way. So I feel like that kind of downplays the actual scale of what people would like. That's smaller than some real world militaries. And or navies, so anything that Earth could probably handle on its own compared to the thousands of systems.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Thrawn probably could have pulled some people from Empire of the Hand. One thing too I was kind of confused about too, at the end of the book when throws his lightsaber, I thought he just threw it out in space, and I was really confused about how he got it back, but I guess he pulls it back to his hand because I'm reading the comic. I'm looking at the comic. It's like, okay, I guess he did the throw it and pull it back thing, but
yeah,
I'm a little confused about that.
We did get a Tapcaf mention on page 102.
We did, yeah. I think we did in the last book too, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, I think so. But with the battle, one of the other things that kind of stood out was like, it's just the scenes on Virgilio, or was it Captain Virgilio? Yeah, because the ship was called the Quinfus.
It's a Nebulon B in the comic, by the way.
Is it? Okay, because I was kind of unsure about that. I was picturing a imagining for a while, but
yeah, because that's usually called an escort carrier, right? I was imagining like I guess that at first, then like a CR-90.
Yeah, but that actually kind of brings up something from earlier, where the idea of converting bulk freighters to carriers was like this new theoretical thing that had never been done, but quasars were around forever,
right?
And then neutron stars had it. Like, it was like something everyone has been doing forever,
right?
So that was just a fun thing. But
also, dreadnoughts don't usually have hangars, do they? They fly in a hangar in this one.
Yeah, they've always had a hangar below the bulb.
I guess you need at least something for people to get on board and whatnot.
But. Yeah, it wasn't common for them to carry starfighters. If they did, I think it was usually reduced squadrons. But like, the chin bulb, there's the hangars behind that.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of, I like how he describes it as a clamshell with an overbite. That's like the
that's
of a dreadnought
and a battle dragon.
Yeah, true. Just the overbite, but the mouth is open for the battle dragon, I guess, or something.
But yeah, anything else about the last battle there to bring up?
No, I mean, we get more Rogue Squadron, but
yeah, I did enjoy that we got.
Yep, another scene with that.
More of them. Wedge seems a lot more youthful and innocent, and
yes, a lot less like tied into the New Republic command hierarchy and stuff.
I really liked the scene with like Mara getting the Etherway out of Impound. And is like Wedge enjoying playing at being like he's already formed Wraith Squadron, this team of elite commandos who goes undercover like in the first book Coruscant.
Yeah. In the first book, he's like a really bad cover man or whatever.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. He's definitely a bit of a different character, but I do like too how he's like kind of looking forward to the mission. He's like, it's always more fun when have you ever read like the Wedge's gay theory?
No.
Like, if you read a lot of Star Wars EU books, especially, I'm trying to remember what other books, but you can see it in there the way he reacts when he sees Luke all the time. He's always very, very excited.
I don't know. I ship it.
Yeah, sure. Another thing is the Walker. The comic has it as an ATPT.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how the book has it as well. Also, they have it chasing the stormtroopers around the corridors, which it explicitly doesn't do. I'm pretty sure in the book, like, isn't it stuck?
Yeah, it's semi-stuck, and then they're still able to shoot it in the direction they want to.
Yeah,
because Luke tries to free it
down the corridor,
Scooby-Doo style.
Yeah,
but I don't know if ATPTs, like ATPTs, I don't think were a thing yet. It was a smaller version of a Scout Walker, so I think it was how they were introduced. But
I think they were in the Rogue Squadron video game, but I don't know if the comic came before that or not.
The comics are fairly recent, I think. The Thrawn Trilogy comics.
Yeah, I think they were like late 90s, weren't they? Like 98.
I was even thinking like super early 2000s, but maybe because they were. No, I guess Dark Empire was coming up early around right before this. So
it says Heir to the Empire 1 came out in 95.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a bit earlier than I thought.
Yeah, me too.
Actually. But I actually expect it might have been like a West End Games or Wizards of the Coast. I can't.
It might have been. I don't know where the
original design and designation came from, but I'm just speculating there because
I'm curious actually. ATPT. Yeah. First appearance was in Well, they have it as Dark Force Rising on Wikipedia, so that doesn't really help.
First identified, if you Control F that.
I don't see that here. Yeah, no, it doesn't have it.
That's too bad.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm kind of curious. It might actually be Rogue Squadron that had it, because that was 90. Oh no, that was Showdown. Dark Strider campaign. Probably that then. Because that's a West End Game source book, the Dark Strider campaign.
Because a lot of stuff just comes from RPG source books, so
yeah, you're right.
I think that covers like most of the main story beats. If there is there anything else you want to bring up before we get into questions?
I wonder what Han saw inside of that AT. Does he see something that like makes him sick?
Well,
probably like a dead bot, like somebody who went crazy and killed themselves, I imagine.
Well, Luke kind of brings up, I was thinking about that the fleet would be like strewn with bodies, but then Luke brings up like the cleaning droids were probably working overtime to get
right,
like wondering what they must have gone through.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably couldn't move the ATPT, so they went inside, grabbed the body, pulled it out, and there's like probably just like smears and stains everywhere from where they were dragging them.
I don't know what this stain is, but I'm not a fan of it.
I'm not cleaning this shit up.
One thing I liked is when they're on Honegger and Leia's like, she wants to ask why the Nogri changed, like why some are gray and why some are darker gray or whatever. And I just remember that scene in Mean Girls where it's like, you can't just ask people why they're white. Like, you can just ask Nogri why they're gray.
Hey Matrak, are your people racist anywhere?
Yeah, like that's what I was thinking. I was also thinking about better ways Thrawn could have handled the incursion onto the Chimera. My first thought was to just jump the ship through hyperspace, but because like you can't like what happens if you jump out when you're in hyperspace? But I guess the main issue there is they have access to the inside of the ship, so they could sabotage or whatever.
Yeah, especially they had to shut down all the computers or the main computer because Mara had access to it. So I don't know if they actually could have. Yeah, I don't know that she could have, or that they could have jumped hyperspace when they were turning that off.
But like, you think there's like a physical way to close the hangar doors or something? Because like that was just like a little weird. Like, there's no way to prevent something from.
Yeah, especially coming from deep storage where they've got to move the ship down.
But... Yeah. So like you'd think that they have like, because you see in Revenge of the Sith, the Providence has like that hangar door that comes by when the weird shield that exists for some reason.
What happened there is that Anakin just got so upset from almost getting crushed by that he decreed that no Imperial ships could have it. Mm-hmm. They always must be open in case he needs to fly in at any given time. And I think that's what went down with that.
I like that retcon. It makes sense to me. That's
what I'm doing. I'm just I'm helping Star Wars authors figure out what to do with their story beats to make sure it all jives. So you're welcome, everyone. If they would like to consult with me for future novels, my fees are very reasonable.
Very reasonable. You've got to become a $10 patron. That's it.
Yeah. I got to pay that rent.
Someone in the comments did correctly point out that the design of the ATDP or ATPT, there are early Ralph McQuarrie concepts. So. Other than that, I don't know. Do you have anything else you'd like to mention?
No. I think we're good for everything that leads us into Last Command.
But this is a transitionary episode.
The middle episode of the middle thing of every trilogy is always more setup than anything. Mm-hmm. You get some down moments for characters. They lose some stuff. In this, it's losing the Dark Force, but
yeah, they take a pretty big L in this one. That's for sure.
But yeah, I guess that gets us into the emails.
All right. Let me pull.
We did just get a new one from Giordano, who's in the chat asking, do you plan to review any canon book? If so, please do Resistance Reborn. I asked this a couple times in Dark Force Live. Sorry if it's annoying. It is not annoying. Sorry. Well, I guess I'll say now, we tend not to be very interactive with the chat during the episode because it is an audio podcast. So if we're just like going back and forth with the chat, it's easy to get lost. So also thank you to anyone who super chatted. We don't call those out when doing the recordings, but yeah, if you want to.
So, I mean, we're not sure. We don't have any specific canon books planned. We'll probably do some at some point. But yeah, I mean, I've read a bit of Resistance Reborn. I haven't flagged that. It is a pretty good book, but
we did talk
like
about for when Dark Chaos Rising, whatever it's called.
Thrawn, Star Wars: Thrawn: Ascendancy: Chaos Rising.
Yeah, so when colonoscopy comes out there, we did talk about doing the other Thrawn books leading up to it, so maybe we'll do something like that. But at some point, I assume we'll probably cover other media.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll let you know before we do, certainly.
Yeah.
Next is from Jeffrey, who asks, he's glad we're taking the time to review the books. Do you think Garm Bel Iblis's personal rebellion was the inspiration for Saw Gerrera? I mean, we do kind of get some mention. I think both Legends and Canon had the idea that the early rebellion was there were lots of independent factions, and we even get some of that mentioned by Bel Iblis. So I think they definitely took inspiration from the formation. I don't know if Bel Iblis specifically, because the big kind of factor for Saw is like his kind of moral grayness, I think.
Yeah.
And Garm doesn't really come off that way, I don't think.
Yeah, like both were an attempt to throw in some kind of discord to the rebellion. And a big thing with the Bantam era, especially, I think, was they wanted to avoid too many gray areas with like the good side and the evil side. Like, we do get some stuff like Bors Phalia and everything, but the New Republic is still like unquestionably the good guys, and there's some of this stuff that is like it's clearly wrong what they're doing. But with Saw, something that comes up a lot in even the Del Rey period of Legends, and now with what we're getting for a lot of new canon, is they are a bit more willing to throw in the questionable means thing, where like Saw Gerrera is on the good side, but is what he's doing justified? Is what he's doing just as bad as the Empire in some ways? So he's filling a similar role to Garm Bel Iblis, but a less kid gloves version. Yeah,
that's a good answer. Next we have Cody, who says, thought there was a bit of mirrored thought in Ben's farewell to Luke about being Rey and Luke in the movies. You cut out a little bit there. So. Oh, sorry. He asks about a mirror to Ben's farewell to Luke in Heir to the Empire about being first of a new order versus last of the old, with what they're doing with Rey and Luke in the movies. And yeah, I definitely felt that too. I meant to comment on that last time.
I can kind of see that, but I'm also not entirely sure what's going to happen after Rise of Skywalker. Like, I don't know if they're going to reestablish a Jedi Order with.
Well, Luke does say he won't be the last Jedi, but no, you are right.
Yeah, I don't think it'll mirror the Jedi Order the same way that. I guess it depends on who actually takes the first steps in setting that up, because once the movie has done what it's done, obviously it'll need to get approved, but yeah, I do see the parallel there, but I'm still interested to see what they actually end up doing with.
Honestly, they should let Timothy Zahn have the first trilogy in the post-sequel era.
You mean Thrawn: Ascendancy, Thrawn Chaos: Rising?
No, like the first, because that's a prequel, right? Like the first, like let him do the world building, let him fix whatever issues there are. But anyway, Callum is next.
But actually, first, if there's anyone who has any questions in the chat that you want to get in, you can do that when we do the email questions, then we'll get to those as well. But yeah,
I'll just pick a few from Callum. He points out some issues with continuity, not okay. like Lieutenant Jeddah Page being not human. There's the comics are bad for that. There's a few examples of that. It talks about Nomad City. Talks about other Jedi clones, including Starkiller, X1, X2. Yeah, the X2 and X2 are especially weird.
Yeah, I really don't like the Renegades or the mobile Battlefront game. They're just awful for everything in lore.
Yeah.
Like, don't.
I also do not like the Grand Admiral Nile Declan doing the battle meditation. I think that's really lame.
Yeah, Palpatine controlled everyone, but he was busy that day, so actually it was Nile.
Yeah.
I do like that there was a Grand Admiral who did it, who like also did battle meditation, but I don't like the full transfer of responsibility to Nile for that day.
Agreed. I meant to mention this too. The funny bit about Nosferir giving away Dark Force contact is a really funny moment. I think one of the most iconic moments in the book probably is when Niles gives away Thrawn's name.
Yeah, there's no information for free. Just tell Thrawn that.
And then he does it and then does it later with the what's his name again? The contact for the Black Fleet.
Hoffner?
Or Dark Force. Yeah, Hoffner.
Yeah. He's good at stealing ships. He's not good at apparently anything else.
Yeah. And then we talked about special Tapcaf.
Yeah.
So we addressed most of that. Thank you for the email.
Yep. And then our next email here is Neil.
Neil, yeah.
So something I'd like to get your opinion on is how Zan handles the Force. I remember last episode he mentioned how silly it would be that Yoda could have his power taken away by Zalamari. It's a fair point. I did like how Zan suggested how it was brought about by an evolutionary defense mechanism. So
that's implied, I guess,
do you think he had the keys to the kingdom when he was writing the trilogy? He mentioned several Force abilities I haven't seen before. So have you guys seen any of those Force abilities repeated elsewhere or any strange Force abilities in new canon? Like we get really what Cal is doing, but that's kind of a variation on what Quinlan Voss and I think Thom could do.
Same, psychometry. It's the same
skill.
And they even mentioned I don't know if the game mentions it by name, but the devs mentioned it by name a few times. One thing interesting in this is Luke says he's not a very good healer. Jedi standards, he's not a great healer, but he's not bad either.
Yeah. Well, he repairs the lady's mind in Trisa Bakura too, but
he tries to heal Deb, but heals himself. He kills those bugs. But any weird Force abilities? I mean, some of the stuff that that Joris does is pretty crazy. Like when he fuzzes Luke and Mara's minds. That's we don't see that a lot. I thought it was pretty cool. Like he basically makes Mara like drunk fly, and then he kind of has like he kind of keeps Luke like part of the reason why Luke doesn't leave earlier is because he's kind of like always under the sway of his bullshit because of the Force.
I think Star Wars could have a lot of potential for like a horror story, which I mean, Fallen Order almost gets to that point with some stuff, without getting into any spoilers. Yeah. But just the idea, like, there's people that exist in this universe that can just super
dominate you,
completely screw with your mind.
Yeah,
and having like a psychological thriller set in the Star Wars universe, I'd be all for.
Yeah, me too.
If we can get that as like a Disney Plus series, yes, please.
Yeah, they'll put it on the list right after the DuckTales, I think. I'm trying to think if we get any real characters like that. Sabayoth, because he does something like that with Pelion in the next book, where he like tells him to do something, then like you're not going to remember this. But other than that,
there's one other email we got here. Which I think we covered the ones on the spreadsheet already, or not the spreadsheet, the Google Doc there. Okay, so this one we got from Johnny Faber. Okay. Hi, my name is Miss Faber Ahmed. It is with a real pleasure to exchange with you because I say to myself that it is perhaps you, the nice man, attentive, and very affectionate that I look for in order to find a real home by writing this message. I have a presentiment that we could about a few choices to the extent we are the same as we are and that we are looking for each of the sides to soulmate. So that's why I discovered my soulmate on the internet.
Legends, was it?
So thank you for the email. Apparently our spam filter isn't strong enough.
Double deflector shields. I don't see too many questions in the chat either.
Valerie with some
Shameless
Thrawn
plugs.
Revenge tie-in questions.
But yeah, so I guess that's it. Do you want to do your rankings?
Yeah, so I'll flip on over to the ranking screen here, the fancy new technology we have. So right now, for both of us, we have Plagueis first and Krytos Trap last. With
Air
some,
being number 2.
yeah, with Heir to the Empire, we're number 2 for both of us.
Yeah.
Heir to the Empire and Dark Force Rising are very close for me. I do think I was strongly considering putting Dark Force Rising above Heir to the Empire, but I think simply because of middle movie in a trilogy syndrome, with how it is mostly set up and less payoff,
Yeah.
like you don't get quite the same highs as the introduction or of the Last Command. I think I am going to put it third, so right after Heir to the Empire, and I fully expect Last Command to be at least second, if not first.
Yeah, I agree completely. It got a little less world building too, which I always enjoy.
Yeah.
The first book just sets everything up in such a nice way that like it deserves so much credit. This book also uses the word sardonically so goddamn much. Like it's crazy. I would guess this book uses the word sardonically at least 100 times. Maybe not, at least 70 times. 60 times. Be reasonable. Probably 60 times. And yeah, like that is just kind of a little nuance, right? But overall, the book is really enjoyable. The really impressive thing is like how much he flushes out the universe like through conversations. You know what I mean? Just like Han and Lando just like shooting the shit, and it'll be like they'll tell you something about the universe. Like they'll be like, "Oh no, you can't use a repulsor lift in that way. It only does." And so much of that is like ends up being like foundational to the universe. So all three of these books really. But yeah, number 3 for me. But
number 3 for you. So that puts both of us with the same top 3 and the same last 2 with Truce of Bakura and Krytos Trap.
Yeah. I wonder if anything will. I don't think anything's gonna fall under Krytos Trap. I honestly don't know.
Ever?
Maybe not. Even Crystal Star, it's so stupid, or like Children of the Jedi is so stupid, but it's so zany and so weird that like Krytos Trap is not only it's just boring. Like it's just really boring.
I don't know. I'm
gonna
read
read
like
it
there's
again.
some coming that are gonna fall.
Maybe like what's the one where they're dealing with the plague again on not Children of the Jedi, but the other one. With the hut. What's the name of that book again?
With the Jedi Hut?
Yeah. What book is that again? I always forget the name of that one. Is that? It's not Darksaber. It's
Planet of Twilight.
Yeah, Planet of Twilight. Yes.
Okay.
Hate that book. But yeah, that's another Barbara Hamley one, I think.
Yeah. Well, isn't it part of the same series as?
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the Callista books. It's like Darksaber, Planet of Twilight, and what's it called?
Yeah, I don't think Krytos is going to be bottom for me.
Children of the Jedi.
Like it doesn't have much happen to it. It's not a bad book though. But yeah. So we did get 2 more questions here. Just before closing out, I guess. What are your thoughts about Star Wars shows using old concept art in the shows? So I guess adapting like Ralph McQuarrie's old stuff.
It's fine, but I like Ralph McQuarrie is amazing. Obviously, I find it's kind of a way for them to ignore criticism. You know what I mean? If it's like this design is too similar, and it's just kind of like a way of saying, well, yeah, but it's Ralph McQuarrie stuff, you know?
Yeah, and it's the design that they chose to not use. So
exactly, like having the X-wing for the sequel trilogy be based off McQuarrie art. I wish they would have done a little more. And some of the design choices for Star Wars Rebels, for example, like the really tall neck Star Destroyer.
Yeah,
I think that's based on Ralph McQuarrie.
It's more of a. I think that was just like stylization,
stylistic, yeah.
but
It's kind of like saying there's like certain names in Star Wars that you use a way to give you credibility to whatever project you're working on.
yeah,
And Ralph McQuarrie is one of them.
yeah. Ralph McQuarrie, John Williams.
Yeah.
And I guess
And
the last
then
one. Oh, sorry.
Frank says, I was just going to read Frank's question. He says, have you read The Tenebrous Way? I read that one. That before we did Plagueis. You haven't read it. And he also mentions, I did see this, a Star Wars YouTuber named Janissary. He's the one that does the really in-depth versus videos, I think. He's been hacked. So hopefully YouTube can do something about that. But
Yeah.
it's
been happening
that channel,
a lot lately.
Yeah, the Warhammer channel at Stardays was hacked, and they're still waiting to get a resolution for that. So, yeah.
That's a fun note to end on.
Yep. Enable two-factor authorization, and best of luck to you, because sometimes there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, so I think that's going to do it for this episode of Tapcaf Transmissions. Next episode, as we were saying at the top of the show, is going to be the 20th of December. That's this month. At 7 p.m. our regular time. Unless something...
Let's just put an asterisk just in case.
Yeah, well, we may adjust it. We'll let you know. That one's going to be over on EckhartsLadder, youtube.com/EckhartsLadder. And we're going to be talking about the rise of Skywalker and the end of the third trilogy. Yep. And I guess we'll be back 2 weeks after that for Last Command.
Yep. And we're gonna play some Halo Reach after this, right? Are you gonna stream it?
I think I'm going to. So. Yeah. So
okay. So choose a channel. You're already here, so stay here. I'm gonna take a quick break, and then So thanks to everyone who listened. Thanks to everyone who downloaded the podcast. I noticed numbers for the last episode. Sorry, were pretty good. So always feel free to send us an email, tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com. That's Tapcaf without an E, because you can go either way in Star Wars. Tapcaf without an E. And just thanks everyone for listening and watching.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.